All right, big homie. We finally got it situated. You gonna talk some more of that Cuban nonsense, fast gibberish?
Don't be mad because you don't habla.
I habla correctly. Not
Shit.
that garbled stuff that you were talking about today.
All right. Keep thinking that.
Okay, so you see the surprise guest we got today is big homie, Big Dave.
Starts right in with the fat jokes.
Back into AZ. I know you're loving it. I can see it in your face how much you miss this place.
Oh, I'm excited to leave tomorrow morning. It's you guys can't even imagine.
Yeah. What was the temperature back home?
Nicer than here.
A lot nicer?
It actually says that shit on the television.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah, nicer than here.
So now that we got you back, I feel a lot better because you're here and not on some screen and that nonsense we tried. It's not personal.
I like it.
It's not personal.
I like it.
It's like you're some weird out place. But anyways, you're here because of trial.
Right. Just spent 2 days on the stand.
And we were there.
Appreciate it.
You know, the fucking defense attorney
love and support.
He didn't want to come at you. I'm not going to lie.
He didn't need to. He didn't need to. Not for this
him.
one. So no.
So, anyways, I thought you did phenomenal. But you've got how many years behind you now?
We're our own worst critics, so
yeah.
I can always. There's always room for improvement for sure. So many things you forget, and we're coming up on 8 years and 9 months in a couple of days. So the 28th, being 2 days from now, will be 9 months. 8 years and 9 months. 8 years and 9 months. Yeah.
It's a long fucking time to try to remember shit.
Yeah.
So now that we got you back here, you and I had talked about maybe talking about starting the PS side of PISTLE, right? Which we had talked about early on, which would stand for the public safety side.
Be PISTLE public safety. That's exactly right.
And that would encompass fire,
really,
dispatchers,
yeah,
correctionals, detention.
Yes.
And now that's a lot of motherfuckers to try to bring in outside of.
Oh, and that I think is probably our main topic for today. You know, we've had issues in the past. You and I. You guys are going to get to see some insight into how stupid decisions are usually made by Manny and I, but we kind of do the pros and cons.
I didn't think they were a stupid decision. It all worked out.
Well, yeah, but trial and error, right? It's so we are law enforcement specific, and I've always thought that I'd rather be, instead of being a jack of all trades and a master of none, I'd rather do what we know and do it well and offer to law enforcement, because that's they're the least amount of services for cops, of all the other. And I don't want to say that. I don't want to say of all the other ones, because I don't know if detention officers or probation officers or dispatchers have any
nobody
kind
has
of help.
shit.
Right,
nobody has
right.
shit.
So I don't want to say that. I know that for a fact. Law enforcement, we don't have a whole lot of services available to us, and so I wanted to stick with what we knew. It was our wheelhouse, so that's what we did, and I think we're doing pretty well. There are a couple of times that we kicked around. We had some dispatch, right? Dispatch reached out to us, and that kind of fizzled. Their interest kind of fizzled, if I'm not mistaken.
We gave it a shot. It's not like we didn't try, but I think maybe that's just too far in the infancy side of it, and those people aren't maybe they're just not even speaking of this stuff. And I mean, I can tell you the way I see it is like dispatchers. I heard, because I worked out at West Coast Post Trauma Retreat, and they do take dispatchers, vets, firefighters, police officers.
Right, and they mix them in. For anybody who's listening, we're not talking about putting any of these other first responder groups in with our LE
Correct.
group. We're talking about a separate dispatch group and a separate fire group, or in something to that respect.
Yeah.
So our LE groups will always remain the way they are. We wouldn't integrate anything into them. But there's always been debate. There's always been debate, like, who
Yeah.
would run it? Like, could you run a fire group?
I mean, and so with what I was gonna say with dispatchers, like they read the book, and we're in the movie, right? So, I mean, yeah, they're hearing those sounds, but they're not visually seeing anything. They don't have to stay there when they're in that call. And I'm not saying I'm minimizing it or anything, but there's a big gap between us and the dispatchers.
Maybe on the danger side of thing, and I get the visual cue stuff, there's, that is a big component of what we deal with. But in the same token, like, I thought maybe, I didn't even entertain it because I know I couldn't do it. But if I was sitting in the chair and somebody was screaming for help, I'd probably abandon that chair and go get in the car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it takes a strong person to do
it's
that.
It's hard to sit in that chair and
Remain
hear somebody
calm.
screaming,
Yeah.
and just trying to keep them calm and trying to help them in the best way. That's so hard to be helpless. I mean, I know you're helping, but for us, helping is getting there and doing. And so that profession takes a lot of patience and a lot of mental fortitude. That
absolutely. And we have had dispatchers reach out, and one I've talked to at length. She hears screams, so her and I kind of understand that. She wasn't there, clearly, but that's part of the reason why we get reached out to. And it's, how we are, Dave. We can't just say no and shut the door. So we try to lead them in the right direction.
Right. Try to find other services that may work.
And she's gotten some advice from us, and she's got some doctors on board, which is cool. But I think what you and I probably should start with talking about is the second responders, firefighters, right?
Yes, but with a caveat, because we also, and I want to let the vets know out there, we've had some vets reach out to us who weren't happy with the services that are being offered out there, and we have vets that are cops. I mean, that's just a natural progression for some of the military out there, is just to go into law enforcement. So even at that, we struggled with thinking,
we could do it,
right?
We could fix it. We could help,
right? And it's very difficult. And I guess bringing it to fire, we're now at another crossroads where we have at least one fire guy currently. We've heard from others, I believe, but this one just brings it fresh. This one just came to us.
In Pistle's existence, I think we've had a total of 3 that have reached out.
Right.
And in Arizona, we have, I think it's called Fire Strong, right? Is what they're I know they have a huge international union and stuff like that, and you've said it many times, they're better at advocating for themselves.
100%.
They're better at taking care of themselves.
100%.
But do you think that's just because they're with them 24 hours on and 48 hours off, or is it just ingrained in their culture?
I think it's the culture. I think that, inherently we're a one-man army going to every call. Depending on where you are in the country, depending what your job is. I mean, if you're, with a state and you're out there in the middle of nowhere by yourself, or county, same thing. Cities not so much, because you have backup closer. But it's the mentality of one riot, one deputy.
Right.
When I was with the SO, that was
standard.
That was the way it was.
That's what you got.
That's it. So, I mean, you could call for help, but you better think of ending it now, because there ain't nobody fighting for 30 minutes, It's just the way we were taught. So, I think a lot of it is ego, right? Our culture has a lot of problems with it, which is probably why we have so many suicides. I mean, I think we're up 50 since January or more.
We're over 60 some at this point.
And this is 2018, so we're in
2019
or 2019.
We're in
See?
2019. Jesus,
see?
Dave, what the hell?
I don't know what year we're in. It's a freaking twice. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was on a stand today. Today's my last day, and I'm a little fried, so I apologize. But we're in March. It's March 26th to be exact.
I think year to date we're over 60 some. Yeah.
Right. So you have a lot of suicides, and I can't imagine that there are guys out there who start this job thinking that they're going to end up with, with their gun in their mouth. I mean, that's not how we are as people. I mean, we're there genuinely. I think we take the job to help, to better our communities, right? We like to there's a rush. There's 100 reasons why we take this job. You know, we get to drive fast, point our gun at people, and the byproduct of that is we help people. I mean, who doesn't want to do that, right? So my frustration is because of the way the culture is. If you say you're hurting, you automatically have people that kind of back up, or maybe don't trust you enough to be on their calls, or what have you. Whatever the culture's, you know, whatever nonsense they're telling themselves, and so. And a lot of you will say, no, it's not like that. But I guarantee you, you may not think it's like that, but the guy hurting who's not saying nothing feels it's like that.
Oh, he feels that, yeah.
So
absolutely.
And that's how you got to look at it. We're too busy saying, well, I'm not like that. Okay, well, maybe you're not. Maybe you're not. But the culture is that way. And people are afraid to step out. I mean, think about it. You come out and you say, you know, I've had some suicidal ideologies, or you know, I've been real depressed. I mean, you know, you got to worry about keeping your job at that point, let alone what the next guy next to you is thinking, you know.
Or even if he's thinking the same thing, you're just going to both keep your mouth shut at that point.
Right.
You don't want
so many
that
consequences,
out.
You know. And I think that fire doesn't have that machismo piece that we have, you know. I mean, you know, they're I'm not saying they don't have the bravado piece, you know. They're men, and they're, you know, they got.
You
some
ever seen
egos.
them walk up to one of your scenes, Dave?
Well, yeah.
They walk up like their fucking shit doesn't stink, right? Carry all the fucking suitcases and shit.
All the hard work's done.
Shoes
really,
all
right?
undone because they've been sleeping their whole fucking shift.
Right.
You know, they left a guy back there burning the fucking chili on the fucking.
For sure.
You know,
for sure.
But
and
dude,
you know.
I you know, it's not that I don't believe that they belong. It's just another part of us eventually that should expand. And as we're seeing now, it's just coming to the forefront.
Yeah, listen, cops and firefighters, you know, usually have a good relationship depending on what side of the country you're on. You know, we talk shit about each other just because it's fun. But, you know, when I got shot, fire was Johnny on the spot, man. When they finally got into my shooting scene, you know, they helped me. And I was thankful. You know, the two guys on the rig, I don't know if they're ever going to hear me say this, was I tried reaching out and figuring out who they were, and I didn't chase it early on because wasn't right in my head. But, you know, those two guys, they were putting needles in me, and we were joking, right? Because when I get nervous, I'm joking, right? So I'm getting an ambulance ride to St. Joe's, and those guys were great, man. I mean, they were awesome. And I really felt the love. So, you know, we there's always banter, there's always shit talking, but I think it's, you know, it's out of fun. So I know that fire has their own issues. I know that firefighters see a lot of shit, a lot of, you know, the drowned babies and the stuff that we see. I mean, we're at the same calls, you know.
Right. But there's also that hazard side of it, right? Because they've got mountain rescue. They've got, you know, I think they have a scuba team, and they go in and do recoveries. They got to go in into what's that swift water rescue shit, you know.
Depending on where you are in the country,
yeah.
You know, the cops do it, you know.
No, fuck. Are you kidding
joking.
me?
No.
Where the fuck are the firefighters in that fucking part of the country?
Some towns, anybody can chime in, but some towns have dual duty, right? You're a cop and a fire guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you got to be insane. But
put the best guy on the job and have him do both of them then. Fuck it. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I would say, yeah, fire needs the same thing we need. I guess our assumption's always been that they probably have it, and, you know, based on the way they advocate for themselves, and they do. Here in Phoenix, we'll speak to our area because I don't know the rest of the country, but I'm from Jersey too. Firefighters, they get taken care of, you know, when they're paid, right? Because there are a lot of auxiliary and volunteer firefighters.
But those guys over there back in New York, they're cross-trained too, like you were talking about. Like, they have officers that do extractions out of cars. I mean, I've seen that done.
Yeah, it depends on your agency and where you are.
Yeah. So is it, I guess, so we'll just start with you said, like Arizona. I've always thought they've taken care of themselves. I have relatives that are fire guys. I have very close friends that are fire guys. And, you know, I don't think since we've started Pistol, they love what we do. But no one's ever, on the fire side that I've known, has ever come to me and said, hey, what about us?
So is it because they're taken care of, or is it because they have the problem we have and we're just ignorant to it? That they have the whole ego, I'm not going to say nothing thing. You know what I mean?
That's a good question, man. I having talked to a couple of firefighters now, and I think some of that's coming to light. I think they do take very good care of themselves. I think that's how they normally do it. That's how it's always been done. And I think now it's just coming to a boiling point where people are starting to be truly burned out in public safety.
So if they have an avenue, and guys, this is us beating this around the block. We have no idea. We're just basing it off some of the stuff that's come our way. In particular, one, what happens when you get sideways with your agency? Are those resources still available? Or when everybody's looking at you wrong or sideways, is that still offered?
And we're finding out that some of that is not offered because we don't know how, what I know Dave in Chandler tops out at about X amount of dollars. It's about equivalent to Manny on this side and so at this place. Like cops, pretty much all the cops that I've talked to in the last 4.5 years with Pistol, I'm usually pretty good at being accurate with the same. It's the same. We've gone Canada.
We all get screwed the same.
Yeah, they fuck us good. Usually. Across this world, that's what they do to us. The fire guys, having been involved with West Coast now for a number of years, they still struggle exactly the same. So I know that even though they're getting taken care of by their agencies, and maybe they're getting taken care of differently in response to how they get them help faster than us, but they're still suffering the opposite side of that wall the exact same. The night terrors, the alcoholism, the self-medication, the intrusive thoughts.
Well, yeah, don't get it twisted. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all swimming in the same pool at the end. We're all having the same
We're just on the deep
issues.
end, Dave. They're on the shallow end.
Shit.
Shallow.
So nobody's saying that at the end you don't have the same symptoms and the same issues. We all get there differently. But I'm posing the question out there to anybody who hears this, or a fire guy who's struggling or what have you. I mean, we'd love to know where they are falling short. I will tell you on the law enforcement side, it's just that. It's an ego problem and it's a culture problem. You the moment you say something like, I'm suicidal or homicidal or, I'm suffering with depression, people automatically start thinking, oh, this guy's on medication. I don't know that I want this guy on my call. The agency's thinking, should this guy be carrying a gun, right? This guy still needs benefits and a 40-hour paycheck. But, all of a sudden he opens his mouth and he may lose it all. So sometimes it's just easier to keep your mouth shut and just self-medicate in whatever way you choose. Bottle it up for as long as you can and hold out, and maybe you hit your 20, or 25, depending on your generation at this point.
Yeah, I know.
So that's where cops have that struggle. I don't know that if a fire guy turns around and says, hey, Captain, that baby messed me up and, I got kids at home and I keep seeing his face and whatever, and it's really bothering me. Where do they go from there? Do they get the same? I mean, shit, I got sent to an EAP, right? I've talked about that in a previous podcast, but I
marriage counselor.
I got sent to a marriage counselor after the shooting where I got shot and I lost a partner, and this lady, God bless her soul, Meryl Lane. I'll throw her name out any day of the week. Great lady, but she got me, right? And when I throw up all this garbage that's been cooking for a year after the incident, or almost a year, she's like, you are in the wrong place. Do they have that same, pick from the EAP list, somebody who's close to your house, and bam, and there's no specializing in the stress or the trauma? I don't know that's an issue for fire, and I guess we're beating this up because we're trying to figure out how we proceed, or do we reach out to the National Firefighters Foundation and find out what resources are available? Maybe we can offer some techniques for how we deal with cops, and maybe they can put their own together, or if they want us to do it, or if there are even people in the Phoenix area that are struggling, that are just that silent minority that just haven't stepped up.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd like to get the calls to find out what kind of numbers we're dealing with, or even if they would.
Careful when you say that. I mean,
Well,
you
we
might,
know what happened the last time that
you might blow up
that we
phone.
did that. But I would definitely say, just to get a gauge to find out if it's necessary. I mean, I don't want to say if it's necessary, because I think it is necessary. Even if it's just one guy that needs help, it's necessary. Because here, we just don't hear about those firefighters like.
Shit, we barely hear about the
Excuse me.
cops.
Well, and not to take anything away from the officer that was just killed in Phoenix, Paul Rutherford. But there's two sides of that. Well, three. The family for the officer, but his partner, the partner that just was in the car chopping it up with him, having a grand time, and then he just witnessed his partner get killed. That's the other part.
That and the guys responding to the scene, man. I mean,
right,
it's a
those
ripple
guys.
effect that
But
just
then,
tears through.
Yeah, and then you've got that fire truck. Those fire guys got to try to help that officer. And when it doesn't work, who's helping those fire guys? And are they saying anything? And that would be my question, because it doesn't necessarily mean that has to be a drowning or a car accident. But do those firefighters take the same amount of guilt that we took or that you took in that,
maybe they get better training. Maybe they process it better because they're better trained in the mental health aspect of it.
So like they just see, I don't know. I would find that hard to believe. That would be kind of like somebody saying they're just good with death because it's part of the job. I don't think we're ever good with that.
No,
like
I agree.
You said in the past about you're in your head about, could I have done more? Could I have stepped left? Could I have stepped right? Well, I'm wondering, are those fire guys doing that for that police officer? Could we have been there faster? Could we have done this? Or are they just saying there's nothing more we could have done and getting past it?
I'm sure there's some of it, but I guess what I'm saying is you've seen the training we get on mental health, right? It's some 2-hour nonsense that they throw at us, over the course of the academy, and it's always like an afterthought. It's like, oh, forget it. Sit down real quick. Let's get so-and-so in here real
They're
fast.
like, hey, I got in a shooting, couldn't sleep for 2 days, and I was better. Okay, go.
Right. So because of the, and maybe I think they just have a more compassionate job, because they do a lot of the medical side of things. Is that training that they receive, and maybe they handle it better than we do. I mean,
fuck, if they do, I want to know how they handle it better than we do.
Agreed.
I think, I guess I'd have to talk to some firefighters, which, I don't even know how to engage a firefighter. I don't know that they would actually be honest.
Well, so all you guys out there in YouTube land and podcast world, comment if you can. If you know a fireman, he doesn't have to listen to all of us, this banter back and forth, but I guess, are we on the right track? I have no idea whether PS is even ready. If we would get traction, necessary is probably a better word. If we'd have traction, I'd ideally like it to start on the fire side, because we do. It's a lot easier. I mean, their first response, they're right with us. They see a lot of the same things we see. There's a lot to it. They don't have the court stuff behind the shootings, the stress on that piece. But, those accidents, those drownings, those just even the officer involved shootings, I mean, they're coming and they're seeing,
right.
And,
and it's not like they're going to look scared. That's like us saying we look scared in that. And, you said you joked about,
I was scared.
Well, you joked about because you were scared. But you were saying, you were waiting for fire. You're like, I'm good here. Just let me lay here.
Yeah.
And, here's
That's
fire
funny.
guys, and they're probably looking like, this dumb motherfucker shot, and he's cracking jokes.
Right.
You're scared, but you don't want them to see that. Well, are they, in turn, looking at you going, we can't lose this cop?
I don't know that it's ever been about other people seeing that I'm scared. I think that's my own way of not falling apart. I think my humor keeps me from just losing all hope, completely, and for those of you that don't know, when I was in that shooting, I got shot, and we lost Carlos, and Brian was also shot, and that's the trial we're in. We're in one of the first of several trials.
9 years later.
Tell me about it. So when I was shot, it was a through and through. It was in my left flank, and when I hit the ground and I kept addressing my targets, after all got quiet, I laid there, and once the SWAT team got in there and we started getting aid to the guys, I was telling them, take them out. I'm good. I'm wounded. I'm laying on it. It's pinched off. I'm good. And there's so many people that think like, you don't have to be tough or you don't have to be. And I kept telling people I had nothing to do with that. I was afraid. I thought that if they lifted my fat ass off the ground and my wound was no longer being pinched shut, that I'd bleed the fuck out.
You're just going to bleed out and die right there.
Right. I'm not trying to be a hero here. After they got everybody out and they came back in for me, I'm still like, hey, fellas, let's take a beat. Hold on a sec.
Yeah, calm down.
Right. Don't be in a rush.
Yeah.
Leave my underwear on, right?
Don't cut the chonies.
Always fucking tell the fire guy to leave your underwear on.
Because what'd you tell him? I got shot once. Only one time.
That's right. I got shot once. It's up here. Leave my underwear
No need
on.
to look anywhere else.
Right. So everybody is like, hey, man, you don't have to be, you don't have to be this tough guy. I'm like, it has nothing to do with that. And I was cracking jokes because I was afraid. I was genuinely afraid that they were going to lift me onto that backboard, and I was just going to pass out or lose consciousness, and that was it, right? So we do things for different reasons, and people always assume like you're trying to be macho. When I finally got to the hospital, they wanted to put pain meds on board, and because I'm stupid and I'm scared, I said no, not because I wasn't in pain, but because my fear is that I would get knocked out or they'd take the pain, I'd numb out and I'd fall asleep, and then I'd wake up and find out that Brian had died, because Brian was on the table. So
did you know before that Carlos had already passed?
In my heart, yes, but I got confirmation when I was in the ER, and I had my moment where I just acknowledged it, and I had to sob a little bit, and because it was pretty bad. It was a bad scene, and it was very difficult. But even then, they're like, you don't have to be tough with the no meds thing. I'm like, ain't nobody being tough, man. I just don't want to fall asleep and then somebody wake up. Well, no. In this particular moment, once I was in the hospital, I felt I was okay. I didn't want to wake up and somebody said, hey, we lost Brian too.
Right.
You know what I mean? I didn't want that to be the next day. I guess I just wanted to be awake and hear that he was okay.
Right.
And it was probably maybe an hour or two before I got upstairs. And they, and the lady's like, we're going to flush the wound. And I say, oh, hey, slow down. I
know what that means.
Right. I'm hurting. And she's like, did they give you pain meds? And she said, there's no pain meds. And I said, no. I didn't want to get knocked out. I'm not trying to be tough. I didn't want to, I didn't want to miss anything.
Right.
I don't want to be so, doped up that I didn't know what was going on. And she said, well, we could just give you like a little bit to take the edge off. I'm like, oh, well, shit. Ain't nobody said none of that, right?
Take it off.
Where the fuck were you an hour and a half
Take all the edges off and make them smooth, please.
So, no bullshit. My wife's next to me. And this lady, I see her whip up the cocktail on the thing, hit the IV with it. And as soon as she plunged the IV, she grabbed the beaker and went right after me, dude. Shoved the it's a big ass turkey baster. And shoved that shit, not hovering above, not washing the top. She shoved that shit in the hole and squeezed. And I about fucking elevated off that gurney, right?
You knocked me the fuck out, bro.
I thought I was going to break my wife's hand because I was holding on so hard. Oh, yeah. Tell me,
hell no. Okay, so
it was crazy. So I apologize. We got off on a tangent there.
Holy shit. When you go through your whole story on the real podcast, when you're all done with this shit, it's going to be fucking chaos.
It's just so, but that in that instance, I guess that was my point, is a lot of time we're looked at as seeming like we're being macho, when in fact it's a coping mechanism, not the macho part, but the not wanting to put the meds on or not wanting to be picked up. There's so many underlying things that if you don't talk to somebody and get to the real, you don't actually know what's going on. So maybe the fire guys are as fucked up as we are, or maybe they have better training, and we need to look into how do we get that for the officers in the academy and throughout their careers.
Well, let me ask you a question, because that's a good segue into, we've had officers that have, been trapped in rooms, gone through floors, maybe went through a ceiling or something, or had something fall on them, and then they're rushed off to the hospital. And then they have to notify the wife. Now, I know this cannot be any different for you being shot and your wife having to be told you're at the hospital being shot to a spouse who maybe has a firefighter who's trapped and he's burned, he's unconscious, and they get him to the hospital. Now they're going to get the wife.
It's got to be exactly
the same. It's got to be exactly the same.
It can't be any different.
So how, if there's a spouse of a firefighter that maybe was struggling with that, can you just touch on how your wife did with, because I know the story, I've heard it, we speak together. When you fucking called and then hung up the phone, and now she's getting a call, she's getting the neighbor to come down. How, and I eventually we'll have Liz on, but how did she cope with that going in, and more importantly, the whole Dave gets a pass because he wasn't hurt, he wasn't killed, and he's still around?
I will tell you guys that the way I did it was wrong. It's wrong. Okay.
Don't call
we
and
revisit.
hang up on your wife.
I was stupid, right? And in that scene, there was a moment where everything got quiet when I was still on that floor, and I thought, "Let me call my wife." Mind you, I'm pinching this wound off. I don't want to get up because I don't want to bleed out and die, right? So
how long after the shooting is this?
This is during the shooting.
During the shooting.
Well, not during the actual volley of the shooting, but so after all the bad guys run out, right? SWAT's working their way in. I give up my, trying to remember. It was just before they get to me, and I just kind of whip out my phone. I throw it on the ground. I'm calling. I put it on speakerphone, and I'm like, it's ringing. And I got my gun in my hand, and I'm waiting, and everything is just like surreal, right? This didn't just happen, right? It's a lot of that. It's very surreal, and it's ringing, and then the bright ass idea comes to me like, "Hey, what the fuck are you gonna say?" Yeah. And I thought, "Oh shit!" And I hung up because I thought, "The fuck am I gonna say?" Hey, I'm lying here on the floor thinking of you.
Yeah.
And I've been shot. And shit's really bad, and I'm not sure why the fuck I called you, because this is probably freaking you out right now. And I mean, what do you say? So I hung up because I'm a jackass. And the system, the way it's supposed to work, at least for cops, I'm sure it's got to be the same for firefighters. Is somebody on your squad or somebody from your PD, preferably somebody that knows your wife, heads on out to her, gets her, and brings her to the hospital. Kind of gives her the best briefing they can give based on the information they have. Mine didn't go that way because I'm stupid. And so once I was in the ambulance, which is 20 minutes after the shooting, I'm finally in an ambulance, and I get on the phone while they're trying to hit the IVs. I hand my phone over to Forkham, and sorry if I threw your name out there, but I love you, Forkham. Anyway, I hand my phone to Forkham, and I'm trying to show it how it works because I'm a techie, and I rooted my phone.
Fucking phone is a phone, bro. You just dial it the exact same way.
Mine was acting all funny. So we call, and she doesn't answer. So then I wind up calling a neighbor, like just a neighbor. And so I hear Forkham get on the phone, and he says, "Hey, this is who I am. You're Dave's neighbor. I need you to go talk to Liz. Dave's been shot." And yes, Dave, your neighbor. I need you to go to. Yes, he has been shot. I need you to go get his.
Oh my God! It's like a fucking Cheech and Chong skit.
You can't blame. She's a civilian that got a phone call from a dude she don't know, saying some shit that's not a normal phone call, right? So then, after he gets her going, I find another phone. I remembered another dude that's actually with Chandler PD that lives around the corner from me. I'm like, call that guy, right? And we.
So now you got two motherfuckers going to talk to your old lady.
Right. And I finally get. I think we get him on the phone, and he tells him, and he's kind of heard the buzz, so he's already moving, and they kind of get to the door almost at the same time. And my wife will, at some point, my wife will tell you the story. But
yeah, that's a.
It's not the best way to do it. I mean, my buddy Art Wigner, who's on my squad at the time, he's like, as soon as I knew it was you, that it was going down, what have you, I was heading en route to go get your wife. And then somebody says, "Hey, she's already en route." So I turn around and I go back towards the hospital. So there is a system in place. I thought I could circumvent it, and it wasn't the brightest way to do it because I'm stupid.
So what about?
How many times I can say that? Trust me.
What? Liz will verify that day.
Right.
So what about you know, the her being there and going through that, and then the after effects? Because if we're going to talk about fire, that potentially could happen where a fire guy's sent to the ER.
Oh, for sure.
And maybe unconscious or not able to make that call. Okay, eventually, but the spouse, how you know, how do you, from the I don't want to say victim, but from your vantage point, what are you explaining?
I'm a victim.
What are you saying?
I couldn't say it earlier, but
I know. But what are you saying to her when she gets there? Like, I'm sorry.
That's exactly.
I'm sorry I got shot.
Those words came right out of my mouth. First thing. She still to this day can't understand why I said it, but you know, she, as soon as I saw her, she's in tears, and I'm like, I am so sorry. You know, like, I am sorry. I promised her, and yes, everybody promises, oh, I'll be safe, you know, but I try to be safe. You know, I want to come home. I love my family, so you know, I felt bad that I had to put her through this. And now she's being, you know, driven to the hospital at, you know, 7 o'clock at night and having to deal with this shit, you know, because of this job. And that's just, you know, part of this job. And do you know if she had any remorse about not being able to make it better for you afterwards? So, and you guys,
because I know you're
from her.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too far into what she thought, but part of your story is you didn't stay in the fucking hospital.
No.
So, being at home, what was that like? Being injured, being at home, and were you vulnerable with her at that time? Were you like, I can't get up, or were you still trying to fucking get up and move and do shit?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
She heard me grunting. I mean, there's no hiding the pain. There was no hiding. There was no man. And I just didn't ask for help, and I was trying to do things because, man, I know what she was going through. I say that now. I don't know what she was going through. I was in my own head, but I was trying to be cognizant of the fact that she's affected too. And I will tell you, and what Manny's trying to get at is we've spoken on it quite a bit in groups and stuff. And so my wife, after that shooting, felt she couldn't be angry with me. She felt like when things were wrong or I'd explode on my kids and stuff, and you know, she was good about, you know, protecting the kids and keeping the beast from being too beast-like in front of them. But there were stupid things that I did and comments that I made because I was frustrated and angry. And she watched me just sit on that couch for the first 9 months stewing in my own crap. And I was a mess. And so when I was a jerk, she felt like she couldn't get angry with me because she's blessed that I made it through. So she, you know, well, he's alive, he's injured, but he's alive. And now he's dealing with the mental piece of it, and he's all messed up, and I know he's suffering, but he's being an asshole. He's not helping me. You know, my partner's not my partner right now, and I'm pissed at him, but I don't want to be pissed at him because I feel like I don't have a right to, because I should be thankful that he lived.
Right.
So I guarantee you almost every wife of any first responder that's gotten hurt in the line of duty
had to respond to the hospital.
Right, but they had, if they were jacked up afterwards, you know, whether it's mentally or whatever, they just weren't engaging the way they normally do. You know, I think every wife gives you a certain amount of leeway, but they get pissed. You know, whatever the circumstance, you're being an asshole or whatever the problem is, they're pissed at you, and they feel guilty. They feel guilty for being pissed at you,
right? Because
they should be thankful you're alive and not petty. And, you know, I've heard my wife tell other wives, she said, hey, there's a line of respect that shouldn't be crossed. Doesn't matter what the hell they're feeling, right? So I will tell you, for the spouses of your first responder, that's one of the things that my wife says all the time. And I wholeheartedly believe that you have to have those boundaries firmly in place, and they have to be upheld. Now, I don't give a shit what your circumstance is. You should never be disrespected. And I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, but you need to be able to call somebody on it, is what I'm saying. you can't allow that to continue over pity that the fact, that they were injured or they're suffering with something.
Right. So, like, I mean, in short terms, Dave gets shot doesn't give you a pass being an asshole.
Right.
And
right.
she gets to be able to look at you and say, fuck off, Dave. You're being an asshole.
Right.
And not feel guilty.
Translated.
Right?
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. So, I guess part of the reason I was asking about that was because if we do get, let's say, a spouse of a firefighter maybe that's injured, did you ever, during that time frame when you were hurt, did you ever feel like, okay, I can't be a burden? I can't be a burden. I don't want my family to have to take on this, this physical injury because I can't pick myself up out of bed.
Not on the physical side of things because I wasn't hurt like that. I mean, that's probably a good question for Brian. Not like that. I thought, at my worst, my family should not have to deal with this asshole. And if I can't treat them better, if I can't be better for them, then I should leave. I shouldn't force them to deal with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And here's one of those, they'd be better off, and I'm not, again, it's not a macho thing. It's, something's broken. I can't figure it out, but they're being victimized by me. And so the surefire way to fix it is to remove yourself, right? We're always drastic in our measures, right? And at one point I thought that maybe she'd be better off if I wasn't here to deal with this shit while I working on it, And I remember in group, she had dropped that bomb on me, and I probably said it in another podcast, and it's always the piece that floored me when she was speaking. She said that. She was ready. She had one foot out the door, and she said, as long as I kept leaving to go find help every day, that she could stay for that day. She said it a hell of a lot better than that, but that's essentially what happens. As long as I was walking out to get help, she could stay.
So from a physical aspect, you didn't have the burden, but from the psychological aspect, would you say you were like self-sabotaging that part of it? Like just saying like, you know what, I'm the biggest asshole in the world. They deserve better. And you just kept pushing them further and further away?
No.
Or I
think I felt, and again, probably even more selfish, I felt like it's too fucking hard to hold this Hulk back all the fucking time. And if they weren't here, I wouldn't have to deal with the holding him back and trying to fix it at the same time.
Right.
So maybe that's a little bit of selfish and a little bit of falling on my sword. I don't know. I mean, that was a long time ago.
So even from a physical standpoint, was that you didn't have any of that feeling of burden, being like a burden because you couldn't move the same, you couldn't lift the same?
I was frustrated, and I wouldn't ask my wife to do stuff, that it's not worth. Hey, because it was hard for me to get up and down, right? I mean, it was, in my core. So for me to try to get up off the couch, it freaking hurt. Right. So, I didn't, I wouldn't.
You're like, I don't need that water over there.
For something stupid, I wouldn't ask her for nothing. If she was walking by, I'd be like, hey, do you need that? I'm like, yeah, can you grab me that, and bring me like all that shit.
All that shit right now. Right. So you just surround me with this.
Right. But I didn't want to keep going, hey, can you grab me that? Wait.
You didn't have like a bell for a maid.
Right. And it did help that I had kids because they were my runners for a bit, refreshing ice packs and stuff. And so... it's really hard to speak on it. I guarantee you that everything I've said, somebody else has felt, somebody else has dealt with. And I can't imagine that doesn't transcend over to the fire side.
No, I wouldn't think. Absolutely.
I'm sure they deal with the exact same thing. And I guess the question is, are those services needed? Do they deal with it better? Do they get better training? Is PistlePS something that we need to get on the ball with and start soliciting some of the firefighters in our area to see if they're in need, or is that something we wait until that floodgate opens eventually and they come out with it, or we learn that they're better at it and we just need to get that training over? You know?
I mean, I would like to know without a shadow of a doubt if they're dealing with the same stuff too, because I don't know the rate that firefighters are getting injured physically or emotionally, and then how that translates over to work comp, right? Because I don't know if they're taking the same mental that officers may take on a shooting,
on a medical retirement.
Right.
I don't know.
And
I would
so,
imagine.
Well, yeah, but is workman's comp better at that for them? Because I don't know. We don't see that.
Workman's comp is absolutely horrible.
And is the city that screws us doing the same to the fire guys?
When you say it's the city, and I always make this distinction, always, the PD and the city are not the same. The city is the one that pays that work comp company.
Or self-insured.
But the city runs that piece. It's not the PD. And I think the PD, as much as you want to believe they have a say in shit, does not. At least mine didn't. You know, they did the best they could. At the end of the day, the city was running the show, and I was going to be treated the way I was going to be treated, and that was the end of that. And, you know, if you work for work comp, you're an asshole. Just kidding.
It's totally okay. You're no longer in any sworn capacity.
Nah, I just want to say you're an asshole. So, it's hard. It's hard to be in a really bad place in your head and dealing with people that are constantly making you feel like
fucking
you're a liar. You know?
Yeah.
Constantly sending you to...
testing your integrity, sending people to fucking follow you.
Yeah.
See, make sure you're not that fucked up. Stuff like that. But and that,
you're
I guess,
an asshole.
I guess that's part of the reason why I was asking that, but was because I really don't know. I don't know what happens when a firefighter gets injured psychologically. And I don't even know where I would start to ask that question other than if someone actually called us and said, I'm being fucked with, or I'm having
guys,
issues.
You can call. You don't have to use your real name. Just say, hey, man, I wanted to answer some of the questions I heard on your podcast. I'm not interested in telling you my name or giving you information, but I want honest answers. I don't need a bunch of idiots calling and saying stupid shit that ain't true. You know, we're an anonymous. We deal in anonymous. That's the world we play in.
Right.
So you can call and just be straight. Say, hey, I work in Arizona, and this has happened to me, and I get what you're saying, or no, fuckers, we get real training. You guys are, you know,
idiots.
Yeah,
you lay on the ground rather than get medical treatment.
Right. So
you don't ask for pain meds when you've been shot.
Right.
That's fucking brilliant.
Right. So if that may be the case, but I sure would like to know, to see if that's something that we need to start bringing to the forefront to get ready to release the PS piece, the public safety piece with Pistol, and start accommodating those other
reaching
fire
out.
To start with fire, and then to start seeing who else is interested, because you guys would be the ones. The way we run Pistol Group is eventually other people are identified that are in a better place, that have been doing the work, and we train them to be facilitators, and then they're running their group, and then we just keep moving on to another group, and hopefully it grows.
As it grows,
way.
they just go to a different group.
So at the end of the day, our members, they're responsible for their own groups. So we need the input. We need the input to make that decision, and we sure would like honesty, not nonsense. And if you work for workman's comp, you're an asshole. What?
You're still fried from today. So we got some time left, and I want to catch up with you before you go back.
All right. We can throw names down. I seriously don't care.
I
don't do that. Asshole.
If you've got a couple more coming up, trials.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm coming back for sentencing on this one, but for sure I heard early to mid-May. There's a date, but my memory sucks, and this guy can attest to it. He puts up with me. I was told the date today, and I spaced it.
A date for what? Sentencing?
No,
the dates for the next trial.
It's already set, and I didn't even hear when the next one beyond that is, but I know this one's coming up in May.
So what was the total the clowns for the circus? What was the total clowns that you had in the circus?
No. I think the number's 8.
8. So it's
8.
It's taken almost 9 years to do 6, right? Because you got 2 left, right?
2 trials left with 2 defendants.
So to get to this
2
point,
left.
to get to this point, you've cleared 6. right?
It might be 3 defendants left. Two had split off, so it might be 2 in the next 2 defendants in the next trial, and then 1. I think there's 1 more in the 3rd trial. I don't remember.
So, yeah, I saw your memory today when we were in court.
Sorry.
I saw that memory.
Yes.
But so dealing with, and I guess because you're here now, and we'll eventually be able to do it on another podcast when it's all adjudicated. But
someday
trying to go through that, and I know you were bothered by it and worried about that stuff. But here it is, 8.5, almost 9 years later. What's the how do you know you're better? I guess how do you know you're better, and that distance of time? What is it?
Oh, I was able to speak a lot better. I wasn't triggered on the stand. No, that's not true. I had a headache, and it came on when I was starting to stress out, but it dissipated pretty quick. And I think we've always said it: frequency, intensity, and duration. As those minimize, you're getting better. Those are the absolute signs that things are getting better. And if you get triggered and you're able to push through it and overcome it in the next 15, 20 minutes, half hour, you're doing great.
Right.
I remember somebody pissed me off and it'd be for days, So those are your cues. And today, he ain't not lying. I was stressed out for this. Supposed to be 1 day on the stand. It turned into 2 days.
They got you good on that one.
They got
you good on that one. How you thought that was going to be a 1 day deal?
Yeah, I don't know, because I'm stupid. So,
I think it was wishful thinking on your behalf.
Yeah, I'm stupid. So I was I don't know, terrified is not the right word, but I had a lot of anxiety over it because I wanted to do well. And I have a shitty memory, and it's been 8 years and almost 9 months, and you're going to start asking me shit about something that I have a shitty memory about, right? I know the basics, right? I know the facts, but when you start asking me names and who was wearing what color hat,
descriptions,
it's like, what?
Right.
No idea, and then you're trying to explain it to me. I'm looking at you like, don't bother. Is 8+ fucking years later? I don't remember what hat.
Nobody's going to remember that bullshit anyways.
Is he wearing a red shirt? It's like, what?
Yeah.
So those are the things that I was stressed out about, and I got through it. I got through the 2 days. I'm so happy the first one's done. It was probably the easier of the 3, and I'm not looking forward to the other ones either. But
so this is one of the, I would say probably one of the biggest differences between us and fire. Here it is, this many years later, and you're still addressing that call.
Dicking with it, yeah.
You're still fucking reliving that call.
The call's not letting go of me.
Right.
I could have went to law school, people. I could have went to law school in the 8+ freaking years that I've been waiting for this trial to go. But
yeah, and they're being in that capacity, and I'm not trying to make it any like we're worse off than fire, but trying to get fire to understand that we're considering this matters. But so I'm trying to put in their world what they do to us in comparison, and maybe it's equal, but in cases like this, they put the fucking wire on. Who does that? Is fire going to do that? Like, hey, you 8 years ago you went to this, and we're going to play the audio tape of this,
shit.
And that's the kind of re-traumatization, I guess is what they call. I don't know. They make you relive that bullshit, and you're there again.
I will tell you that if the trials weren't here, if I didn't have any trial, let's say they all died. Let's say it was one dude and it died, whatever. If I didn't have that, I think my healing would have progressed faster. But because I was going to hearings after hearings, looking at the clowns in the box, listening to the idiot attorneys argue and posture and maneuver, getting angry over the postponements, that shit kept setting me back. So I will say, without the court component, I think that in their profession, they would probably bounce back faster. We have guys that are in shootings, the guy's dead, there's nobody to testify, they're not being charged.
Right.
They can bounce back faster. But if you have a court component that's being drug out, it's hard to see how you don't have to.
How you're going to heal.
Right. Right. It's like somebody keeps ripping off the Band-Aid. Once you get it set next month, here you go, rip it off again.
Because we've all, I mean, like today when we were there and I was looking at you, you were trying so hard to remember. And it was fucking with me because I'm like, Dave's going right back to that fucking scene again.
Oh, I didn't hear the question. I'm like, she just stopped talking. Did you? Can you repeat that?
Yeah.
You know, because I'm listening to the wire, the audio, and I'm in it in my head, and I'm back there, and I don't hear anything in the courtroom at this point because I'm stuck, and I'm trying to stay in two worlds at once, and it was taxing. The first night I went home, or back to the hotel, and I crashed, and I crashed hard.
Dude, you text me. Listen to this shit. Now, it was our side grilling you. So it wasn't like it was a defense attorney, right? And
he's right. The
text,
defense didn't start till today.
Yeah, and your attorney, God bless her soul, was a sweetheart to you. And when you text me that first night, and you were like, "Hey, bro, I'm just gonna crash," and I looked at the time, it was like 10 after 6.
Yeah, it was bad.
10. It's 18. 10.
It doesn't help.
And I know you slept that whole fucking time.
No.
Oh, you were in and out?
The problem is I'm still on the East Coast time because I live on the East Coast now. So, yeah, it's 6 o'clock here, but I'm 9 o'clock in my head. So I had a rough day, and I was spent, and it's 9 o'clock in my head. I want to go to sleep. I slept for 4 hours, and I'm up. I'm like,
oh fuck shit. That.
Right. So I kept forcing myself. Then I Netflix, right?
Yeah.
And then I start to doze off again. And I'd sleep for an hour or two, and then pop up, and then
and then it's rough because you're in the hotel by yourself. You're not used to there's people, noises, shit like that. Then I'm almost positive you're starting to think, what the motherfucker's gonna ask me tomorrow? What's that motherfucker gonna ask? He's gonna bring up the wire. 100%. They're gonna play that fucking wire again.
Oh yeah.
And that is not. And that's I don't know that there's an answer because we have to let the judicial system play itself out. But realistically, man, 8 fucking years later,
I don't give a shit who you are. It's unacceptable.
And for them to come in and say we want to play this fucking wire, and it's stupid because
you heard it, right? I mean, you were listening to that.
Yeah, but it's stupid because it's not like they give you a chance to just listen. Like, hey, we're gonna play this and play it all the way through, and then stop and don't play it again. They stop it. Like you hear it, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, stop right there."
What did he say?
What did you say?
What did you mean?
Yeah.
What were you doing?
Who was talking? Yeah. Why did he say that? And you're like, motherfucker. Dude, I think the judge was going to toss me out because at one point I literally threw my head back because I was like, oh, you got to be fucking kidding me. They're going to ask. I could hear on the wire what the fuck you said. And then stop right there. What'd you say there? And I'm like, oh, fuck. Really? You're going to ask it? And I think even a couple times it was good because the prosecutor said, it's evidence. We know what he said there. Why are you making him say that again? And I don't know that is. Let me ask you in closing: is it worse to go through that shit 8 years later again than just going through it the first time?
No, the first time I got shot. It's no bueno.
Well, I say you don't have physical pain in this one, but it hurts here.
I felt like I wasn't helpful. Not to either side. Like, I want to answer the guy. I'm not making shit up. There's not a damn thing I gotta make up. It happened. It's on paper. But you're asking me a question I want to answer to the best of my ability. But it's difficult when so much time has passed by.
Right.
And then to boot, I wasn't privy to any of the evidence. And I almost said that to him. I almost said, hey, bud, I've never even read the fucking report. They won't allow me to look at anything. I'm 8.5+ years later. I haven't seen shit. So you're talking stuff that I don't know.
It's fucking bullshit, dude.
So, but that's just, sorry, we got to, Fire, please, reach out.
Go back to Fire.
Yeah. Fire, reach out. Fire spouses, former spouse, I don't care who you are, but kind of give us a heads up if we're on track, if we're tracking correctly. Are there services needed? Do they have better training? Don't need it? Are they just as stubborn as we are and they're just hiding it and self-medicating? Or where's the issue so that we can figure out what the necessity is for the PS, the public safety side of Pistol to start soliciting that next piece.
Right. All right, brother. Well, I don't know if there's anything we can get you to do to stay in Arizona.
Fuck no.
We try to hold you hostage. But you never know. They might just let you be here.
Workman's comp asshole. Can I do it subliminally? I don't know.
You can say it out loud.
Maybe you guys can't hear that.
We're all well. You're still on. You're still with them motherfuckers, making them pay. So you're getting them good.
No shit. I had to go get a shrink where I moved to make sure that I was mentally healthy after these trials.
Which is another podcast because was she ready for you when you opened your mouth?
No.
Yeah, because you're in some small podunk town and she's like, "How can I help you today?"
No,
you need a hug.
You know, trauma. See, so trauma is trauma. What happened there?
You're good.
So trauma is trauma, right? And you forget that, you know, there are different types of trauma. Accidents, you know, car wrecks, whatever. There's trauma's trauma, right?
Right.
So a lot of people don't have the experience that I've had. So she was caught off guard a little bit. And, you know, she may say she wasn't, but I'm pretty sure. And she's a good person.
Yeah. Well, the analogy you gave us at lunch, when you gave it to me at lunch, when you were like, I'd hit her with the left, and then I hit her with a solid right coming out, I was thinking, oh my God, this poor woman, she's going to be like, I'll never, ever, ever go to Arizona because it's fucked over there.
Well, in comparison to where I'm at now, yeah.
But it's nice and quiet for you. Now
it's beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful.
And now you're...
And she's a good lady. She's tolerant of me, so that's
good.
The important part.
So, in closing, we're looking at starting North Carolina, right? In that region.
Yes.
And you'll be working on that in the next end of the year-ish sometime?
No. Next couple of months. I got a guy from South Carolina, so we're working on South Carolina in you know, simultaneously. So I got somebody I'm going to meet with and talk over to kind of see what the problems are and how we can
same fucking problems, bro. Every time I turn on the goddamn news or go to the internet and shit, there's some sour shit going on in North Carolina and South Carolina. Like,
that's only because you're paying attention.
No, that's bullshit.
It's always been there.
Look, man, let me tell you why you should move back to Arizona, because 7 motherfucking cons escaped from prison in North Carolina.
Because it's lax.
It's dangerous over there, dude. More dangerous in North Carolina than in Arizona. Because here, you can kill a motherfucker and they'll just let you be. In North Carolina, man, they're going to start taking your guns, Dave. And I know that scares you. I haven't thrown that on the table yet.
North Carolina ain't
Eventually, I'm going to call you and say they're taking your guns. You come back.
Carry. Very, very good state for Second Amendment rights.
All right, if you say so.
I promise.
But I appreciate you being here, man. I know.
Thanks for having me, guys.
I know for a fact it was rough. And I wasn't sure if you could make the podcast, but you always say you push through. You all right.
I got to push.
And you did. You contrary to what you believe, I think you did phenomenal on the stand. You did. I think you did really, really good because I was fucking stressing out and sweating my ass off, not wanting to scream at the fucking people. And I think you had really great jury appeal with that smile of yours because every time you looked at them and smiled, they smiled back. And
probably like, you stupid. You know? Why were you there?
Yeah.
That was stupid. No,
so it you know, I thought, like I said, I think you did a phenomenal job for the situation and kept your cool without losing it. But I really believe you scared that fucking defense attorney, man. I don't know.
No, I honestly think he was trying to be respectful. I think he was trying to be cool.
He didn't want to look like a dick to the jury. Like, let's go after the guy who got shot.
Probably more, more on that side. But I think he didn't need to, so he didn't.
Right. Well, and he said it. He said it. He's like, I'm not here to fuck with you.
I'm not trying to trip you up.
Yeah.
I know you did it right. Blah blah blah. So, I got to believe that there has to be some little teeny wincy part of heart in those people.
Nah, he's a fucking defense attorney. Fucking him. So, with that being said, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Saul.
So, again, to us.
Next one will be on video. Yeah.
To us and those like us.
For sure.
Right. It is on video, Dave.
All right. I said, well, you know what I mean. Video.